Alright, 700R4 85 model. We're doing an LS kit, filter, low sprag, updating to a 10 vane pump rotor and vane kit, band, 1, 2, 3, 4 accumulators, upgrading the pump valves, pump spring, doing a pump bushing, case bushing, both stator bushings, the LS kit, which is a kit with clutches, the low reverse steels, forward steels, updating it to the late style sprag, overdrive or forward sprag assembly. Put the hydraulic lockup valve in it. I guess that's it. I think everything has finally showed up for this thing, so we'll get going on it. On our ring kit, let's see what they gave us. Okay, they did give us the solid input drum rings, and they did give us a scarf cut reverse, so we're going to probably put the solid reverse input in. You can use these are fine, but I'll save these for something else. The factory ones on the input drum were scarf cut also, but you get the later stuff, they quit putting those in there, so you can, if it fits in the stator tight, you feel some resistance, you don't have to replace these things, but I'm going to show you how it's done. So you just cut them off. Down in the input drum here, a couple things you want to make sure. There's a couple orifice cut plugs that go down in here. You want to make sure that they're in there and that check ball is in there. You also want to make sure that the check ball is in the end of the shaft there. This up here is for your lockup. I'm going to replace this O-ring up here. It's hard as a rock. You're going to want to find the O-ring that's the thickest that you can find to fit on there, that fits properly. Yeah, that one ought to be fine. So we're going to start off in here first. We'll put the resizer on it in a minute. There's an O-ring that goes right down inside there. This thing here. And lube that up really good. All the surfaces where the piston's going to go. There's going to be 3 pistons going in here. I usually catch a lot of flack because I don't replace these aluminum pistons with rubber molded ones from the 4L60Es. I don't find it necessary. You can do it if you want to. I've built a ton of these units, and I've only seen maybe 5 that the forward piston was busted in. So I don't worry about it too much. This is the 3/4 piston. You want the lips facing up towards you. I use Transgel Gold to lube up all my pistons. I use the green. Dr. Tranny makes the same thing. I use the green to hold check balls and bearings in place. Just get the lip fill tool. Mine is a snap-on drawer slide tool. I call it a drawer lock tool, but they call it a drawer slide tool. That's what I use. found it works the best for me. It's going to get in the lip seal there, work it around until you can put the piston down inside there. That drum just gave me a piece of aluminum in my hand. Alright, we're going to need this piece, our return spring, going to sit on top. Our forward piston, this is the one that really likes to crack. I have never seen the others, but this one will crack right around inside here. Like I said, I've only seen 5, maybe, that's done it. It's just not been a big issue for me. Lips facing up towards you again. Check ball inside here. You'll make sure it's rattling around. Lube up the surface. Get our lip seals good and lubed up. You can use whatever you want to put your lip seals in. Feeler gauge, the lip wizards that come in some of these kits. I'm going to have to put this down here where I can work on it. Trying to do some of this where the camera doesn't have to be moved around so much. Doesn't really work out. Sometimes I go to move that camera around and it shuts off, so try not to move it. Alright, so we want this to be lined up with that. This tab is going to line up in there. Kind of hold up on this as you're working your lip seal around the center. And then push it down. And lube up inside of that. And our overrun piston. So check ball on this one, you want to make sure it's rattling around also. Lips up towards you again. Give it a little twist and work it in there. Our return spring. The springs are going to fit in those little tips that are in the piston there. The snap ring is going to have a taper to the tips. You want the shortest end of the taper up towards you. If this is bent out of shape just a little bit like that, you can just give it a few love taps and knock it back into shape. Alright, you got this plastic seal that goes in here for your output shaft. picture is sitting on there. Alright, I have a feeling our clearance is going to come out all wrong. He's got to looking about how they had everything in here, so let's see what we got. Alright, our overrun steels do not have these little legs in it, so they go down first. And these are our overrun clutches. There's 2 of them. And there's different backing plates, different thickness of steels, different pressure plates for which years you're working on. So our backing plate, this one they have at 250. Our cushion plate has a wave to it. I don't know if you picked that up. It's 71 thousandths. I'm not going to put the sprag assembly in yet because I have a feeling we're going to be going back and forth with this thing. So the steels I got, I think were 89. We may be swapping those out. Yeah, steels alternate 5 of these. Alright, our pressure plate, the one they have is 175. And it's right at the bottom of the snap ring groove, maybe slightly above it, and that's about where we want it to be. We got 2 snap rings. The smaller one's the one we want. We're going to put the opening when we want at least 1 full lug on the snap ring. Alright, that's about perfect. I was really thinking it was going to come out wrong. Alright, we want this bearing. This side's going to face down. Our new sprag has this washer on it. We got a guide ring. It's going to go down first. Oil slinger, whatever you want to call the thing. Let's see how tight this fits, because I had a heck of a time getting the old one off. Okay, it went all the way down. There's a little ring around one end of it. You want that end in here. And we want this race kind of tight, and you're going to be working these dogs back up inside there and twisting in a counterclockwise motion. There we go. Move the other ring on top. Hub, this snap ring, and when you are done, make sure it's all the way up in there. Grab this hub. This should turn clockwise and lock counterclockwise. And this is going to go in on here. Usually I put this in first and then stack my clutches up. It's just so I don't have to try to get them to all line up. but it ain't that big of a deal. Alright. Wrong snap ring. Why is our clearance off now? There we go. Must have knocked one up out of place. Alright, you want that snap ring, at least one full lug on that snap ring. And we have this plate. These little legs are going to go around this deal that we put in earlier with the forward piston. Our bottom pressure plate, there's differences of these also, and your steels. 128 on this one, and I'm almost positive this one's going to come out wrong. Our steels, 78. I think there's some thinner ones in here. Yeah, there's a 60. See, they shouldn't have no 60s. 77, 77, 77, and our top pressure plate's 197. So let's see, probably, let's get our 3/4 clutches here. Let me go get some thicker steels. Let's see what we got here. 103s, so these are 4L60Es. Figure we're going to need at least probably 2 of these. And let's find our thicker steels. Leave those thinner ones out. 89, 77, 76, 78. So we'll leave those 2 out. Alright, that should be about perfect. See what it does when we put the snap ring in. A tad bit on the loose side for me. Let's see if we can tighten it up just a little bit. See what we're going to do here. I'm going to leave those 2 thick ones in there. We're going to put these 2 thin ones together. And we'll put these back in. It's too tight. So let's take one of these thick ones out. Put this 77 in there. That's pretty close right there. I'm going to leave it right there. I forgot my washer. Let me go find one. A little thicker than the one I wanted. This one's 115 thousandths, so I'd like to be around a 98. We'll see what it comes out to, because the one they had in there was super thin. This one is 77. That's way too thin, more than likely. We'll see what it comes out to. So we got that washer in there. And we got this bearing. Sit on top. Get our expander. I got these from Tech Pack, I think. Not Tech Pack. Trans Tool. Today. Ready for it to be over. Alright, so we're going to slide our seals down. Kind of work it in back into the groove. Squishing it back in there a little bit. You can do this by hand if you want to. Just take them, stretch them out until you can get them on there, and then use a hose clamp to resize them back down into the groove. Let it sit on there for a few minutes, then take it and stick it in the pump and leave it there until you're ready to assemble it, and they'll resize to the pump. Alright, put a little lube on it. And the resizing tool. We're going to leave that on there. Now this is the style sprag that was normally in from the factory. It's a 26 element, I believe. The other one's 28. It's much stouter. You notice how the ring's not near as big. You still got your oiling ring. You still got your lip there. This is still going to go on here, but it's going to go all the way through. So this would go like this. If you're not careful, it'll push all the way through the other side. That would go on top. This would sit on here. Well, I don't know where the hub went, but it still had the same hub that the other one had, and the snap ring still went in here. But on this style, you had to have the front planet that had the holes in it, and you had to have this 2-tab washer. This washer would sit here. This would sit on here just like that. Then the sun gear would go up in the back of it. You notice the sun gear was made onto that other one, and that goes to a 4L60E, a later Model 1. The 87, yeah, I think it was 87, they went to that style sprag but the sun gear still slid in like this one does. Just sat down in the Planet, and that sat on here. 4L60Es in 90, well, no, I'm not sure what year. Yeah, it might have been the late 90s. They made it to where it popped onto the back of the sprag here. You can use any of that you want to, you just have to use the whole setup. Now, we don't have to change the Planet out because we got the washer holds the sprag up. We're just going to leave this out, and we're not going to use this sun gear anymore. Here's my hub. I don't know why I couldn't see it earlier. So washer went there. That goes on there. That goes in there. Just like that. And like I say, we don't need this anymore. Alright, we're going to change this sprag out. Always check your sprags before you take them apart. This one's turning clockwise, locking counterclockwise. Now, I used to not worry about this one so much. I didn't even used to check them when I get the center sports in, when I got new ones, because I figured there was no way you could put this sprag in backwards. I was wrong. I don't know how he did it. You got to really work at it. You notice that these legs here, these legs face this way. It seems pretty self-explanatory to me, but somebody really worked at putting that thing in backwards, and it was wrong. So it can be done. You think it can't, but it can, because I've seen it. They gave me the wrong sprag. Okay. Let me go see if I got the right one. Okay, they gave me the wrong one. I don't have the right one. I'm gonna have to put this back in there so I don't lose everything. And we'll go on to everything else until I get the right sprag. I'm going to be at a standstill here pretty soon. There we go. Alright. So I'm going to show you how this would stack up. Normally you would have this. We don't really need this because we got it on the drum. And this planetary is going to sit there. This bearing is going to go on top. This ring gear is going to sit on top of that. And a 4-tab brass washer in your sun shell. Those tabs are going to go in those holes. You got a 4-tab plastic washer, a rear sun gear, let me go ahead and put this on here so we can show how this goes. This center support's gonna go here. We got this snap ring that goes on the front of it. Planetary is going to sit on there. This washer is going to go on the back. Our ring gear is going to go there. And this bearing is going to go on there. Alright. Got our low reverses. Our low reverse piston. These are flat lip seals. You got 3 of them. Our return spring, our snap rings. Short end of the taper is going to be up towards us again. Set this off to the side. Our reverse drum, there's a check ball down in here. Make sure it's rattling around. The later drums, I think it was 87, they went to aluminum piston. This area in here got larger. One here is a steel piston. There is an issue with this ring coming off, so if it's in the place that it needs to be, just take it and get you a center punch and stake it in place so it doesn't back off of there. Lip seals up towards us again. Now you're going to get 2 lip seals in the kit. The steel one's going to use the small one. The aluminum piston is going to use the large one. Alright, I'm going to have to find my snap ring. It's really close to this one. It's a little bit wider, so when you're looking for your snap ring, and they're going to look similar except for one's wider than the other, and the wide one goes on here. Short end of the taper is going to face up. Notice how it's slightly wider. One of your steels is going to have a wave to it that goes in the bottom. And it's got way too much clearance. I do believe it's got the wrong steels. Let's see if we got something that'll fit in here. I'll put an extra steel. Maybe it'll come out right. Pretty close. I can live with that. we'll go on to the pump. We can do the servo next, and then we'll do the pump. In your sealing ring kit, you got several different sizes. The large one's going to go on the outside of the whole assembly. The next to the largest one is going to fit on here, and they're scarf cut and they need to go together like so, just like that. The tall end is going to face in. Normally I don't take this all apart, but I did just show you what's in here. Driving me nuts. See if we can get this out of here. Alright, you got, this is your back side. You got a spring that goes in here. You got this cover. And the way I put the cover back in is I put it together like this, put it in a foot press, press it down. The snap ring goes on the inside. And your pin goes in. The spring likes to compress, so make sure the spring's nice and healthy. You may need to replace that if it's just floating around in there. The washer goes on top, and there's an E-clip that goes here. The early ones had sealing rings here, the later ones do not. If it had sealing rings here, you need to put them on. These are butt cut, so you can't screw up putting them on, they just go on. You put some grease to hold them up in the groove if you want to. Corvette Servo has the smallest of the sealing rings that goes on here. And the largest one goes on the outside. always put this spring on the back on here. This helps keep the band pushed off. I don't know why people like to leave that thing out. Alright, our 1.2 accumulator. We got new ones. Check the pins on these. They're almost always worn out, but just put the pin in the center of it and work it around. If it wobbles, it's bad. Somebody put a heavy-duty spring on our 3/4s. Here's the pin that goes in it. Just stick the pin in it and see if it wobbles around. Alright. Save those sealing rings for something else. Alright, I'm going to have to do some work to this, so I'm probably going to shut the camera off for a few. What we're going to do is we're going to go in here with a 1/4 inch drill bit. We're going to drill this passage out 1/4 inch all the way down to the bottom to make sure you don't angle it off and come out the top or go all the way through. You want to stop when it's done. Then one of these passages right here, we're going to drill a hole and open this passage up to this passage so that it's got relief back here. So I'm going to do all that also on our valve right here, our PR valve. I'm going to grind 2 flats on here. So all that'll be done when I come back. Alright, I've already pressed the bushing in, and this is what I was talking about, opening those areas up in there, and then drain back hole. I also forgot, since this does not have a way to keep the bushing from coming out, I grind a couple notches back here and stake the bushing. Press your bushing in so that the opening of the bushing is away from, you don't want to stake it where the opening of the bushing is at, so make sure and move it somewhere over off of there. Our front seal, we're going to put some 3M weather strip adhesive. And go press this in. Your seal retainer back on. I've also been finding these rebuild places like Jasper and stuff, they're not putting this back on, and they've always had a problem with the front seals blowing out. So always put your seal retainer back on any of your 4L60 products. If you got an 8-vein pump, I recommend you update it to a 10-vein. There's a rubber O-ring that goes back here, or ring goes on there. I always keep the old rubber wiper and O-ring that came out of the old one. I found that these newer ones are sticking up too high, so I just reused the old stuff. Make sure your pivot pin is not worn out. Oop, I need my spring. And your little spring goes in first. And then our pump spring. They make a tool to put this in if you want to buy it. Screwdriver works just fine for me. From the factory, and I don't know, these may be the, no, these are hardened rings. From the factory they had non-hardened rings and they would break. So the way you tell if they're hardened or not, you bounce it on the table. If it bounced, it was the hardened ring. If it snapped in half, it was the non-hardened. Put your ring guide plate on the bottom. Put one guide ring on the bottom here. Put your vanes in. Since these are brand new, it doesn't matter which way we put them. If you were reusing this and the vanes, there would be little marks on the vane on each end of where the guide rings were riding. Just put those back towards the guide rings. Alright, another guide ring on top. I already put the new bushings in both ends. Pull out your old filter seal, make sure it's not in there. And see if I can keep this from rolling around. Alright, I've ground the new notches on our valve here. It's going to face with the lip up, or the ammo. It's going to face with this up. Make sure it's nice and free. Alright, here's our old spring. Our old main boost valve. And our old reverse. We got our new spring. It's going to boost the pressure up just a little bit. Our new reverse boost. You can see how much larger it is. Yeah, it's a little much. Come on now. Put a little grease on here to help keep this up in there, and drop that in. And our main boost, this came from WIT. I asked for the Sonex one. I got something else. I don't know what I got. Made by Driveline, never heard of them. see how much larger our main boost is. So the valve's up inside there. This valve would go with the nipple in. This is going to go on top. Snap rings are going to go short end of the taper up. Ah, come on, I had you. And make sure that that snap ring is all the way in that groove. Alright, why ain't you going in? The heck is up with you? Why are you being difficult? There we go, finally. Boy, I was being a snot. Okay, here's a filter up in here. Pop that thing out. Get a new one. Get a new O-ring. Pop that in there. We're going to make sure our lockup valve's moving free. Springs aren't broken. Alright, now we're going to put our pump halves together. See this passage right here? And it's this passage right here. $13mm. Line-up band. You can do it by hand. I did it for years before I bought the line-up tool. You start doing so many of them, it just makes it quicker if you got the tool to do it. But you can sit there and feel it, and if you're good enough at it, you can get it lined up. You're going to line up your bolt holes down in there. got our pump washer. And normally these sealing rings here, put some grease in there and they go together like so. We're going to put the 4L60E solid ones. Lube those up. Put our sizing tool on. And we're going to let this sit. We can take our lineup band off. Put our pump O-ring on. Alright, we're going to let that sit. I got to change camera angles. We're going to stuff this in the case. Alright, when you put your piston in, go ahead and lube this up really good. Lube your piston up really good, all three surfaces. You got a bushing that's going to go down here. You don't want these notches. And there's also a spot where the bushing is put together on most of them. Some of them does not have the spot where it's got a seam that goes together. There it is right there. I don't know if you can see that. We don't want that area anywhere in this groove right here. So we just need to make sure it's off to the side of that. Go in as straight as possible. Try to not hit the camera. And go down just past the bevel. That's probably good enough right there. There's a notch right there in the case. This notch, or this tab, goes right there. So I'm gonna have to lean this back. Camera's right in my way. You stick your piston down in there and twist it until you get it into position. And just pop it down into the groove. Do your best not to cut the O-rings. Our spring cage in. Short end of the taper of our snap ring up. Our low reverse spring compressor. Alright, you have to lean this back again. I just work mine in with the screwdriver. I'm trying to get down there with the pair of snap ring pliers. And we're not all the way down. Yep. Sometimes it gets caught on that lip there. And of course, since we're on camera, it wants to be a pain. Make sure that you're all the way in the groove, all the way around. And I think we're off over here. Doesn't look right. It's gonna be one of them days, it looks like. Everything's gonna be a fight. There we go, it's down now. And we are in the groove. Alright. Rear planet with our bearing on the back. Sorry, ring gear, and a rear planet with the bearing on the back. Our lower reverse steels and the large opening, shorter opening. This tab right here is going to go right there. That's quite a bit of distance right there. Let's see what our center support looks like. We've got a pretty large step, so that should be taking it all up. We'll get to check our clearance here in a minute. We got a hooked end on this rattle clip. It's going to sit on that little ledge right there. Our center support has a large opening. It's going to face over here. Our snap ring, the opening is going to be on this side of the leg of that rattle clip. Make sure that you're all the way up into that groove. If you're not, when it goes and applies that, it's going to rip those lugs out of there. And check our clearance from back here. That looks pretty good. You can error check it right now if you wanted to. Make sure everything's working okay. This is your low reverse, this is your reverse. Alright, our 4-tab plastic washer. Sun gear. Sun shell. Four-tab brass. our front ring gear. Our front planet with the bearing on it. You get a new clip for your output shaft. It goes in that groove right there. Short end of the taper up towards you. Told you everything's gonna be a fight today. Alright, since we're using the late 4L60E sprag assembly, the sun gear's made onto it. We're not gonna put this in, but this would go in next normally. And if you were using the early style sprag assembly, the 2-tab plastic washer would go on here, but since we got the late style, we don't need this washer. This is the way I put my drums in. It's the easiest for me. You can do it however you want. I put the band half in like that. Our reverse drum on top. Alright, when it's all the way down, you should be able to hold your reverse input and pull up on your input drum. I'm going to pop this down into where it goes. Put our band anchor in the hole. I'm going to have to lean this back so I can see what I'm doing. This camera is making it a little bit difficult. Once we got our band all the way in, we're going to go ahead and put our servo so we can check our band travel. Alright, we can go ahead and air check this if we want to. This hole right here is our second apply. This hole right here is our fourth. This one right here is our servo release. You may have a hard time getting that down in there. I always pull this capsule out and plug it. I know a lot of people have problems with that, but I've never had a problem. So look at our band travel, and we look pretty good right there. We're going to leave it right there. Now we may have to take this all back out. We added 45 thousandths to our adjustment. It may be too much. And put our gasket in. this end right here. The early models, there's two different gaskets. The early models did not have this big web right here. It was thin all the way up to here, and that changed in 85, I think. It's when they went to this. Now they say if you put the wrong gasket on the wrong one, it'll leak out the vent. I've never had that problem. You can use either gasket that you want. And I've never had an issue with it, so don't worry about it. Alright, lube up your O-ring on the outside, make sure your washer's on. And put our filter inlet to the bottom. And this is going to make it a little bit difficult because I can't see what I need to do. Alright, for right now we're just going to put a couple bolts in and see how our clearance comes out. Alright, we're still turning. That actually came out really nice. We're going to leave it right there. About perfect. Yeah, we can take this back out. There's washers that go here. The later style have O-rings. Those came in 1990, I think. There's our washers. Alright, lay this on his back. We've already done the air checks on the servo and the lower reverse. This is the forwards. If you want to check it, it can be a little bit tricky. You gotta get something that'll bend down in there. I just air check it before I put it in. Your forwards, your 3/4s, and your reverse input. If you want to air check it, everything's turning good there. Put our accumulator in, our pin, lot of people like to flip this accumulator over. I don't do it. Our spring, we're going to pull our capsule out. Tech Pack Fits All makes the puller for this. You just put it on a slide hammer. Give it a 90-degree turn. Pull your capsule out. This cut plug comes in just about any GM. Transtar's number is 54483A. Just get you a punch and get it down into the dill. Make sure it's lined up before you start driving it in, or it will deform it. Drive that in past that first passage in the servo into the next one. Do not drive it all the way through the case. If you have a check ball and capsule back here, pull the check ball out. You can pull the capsule out if you want to. I just pull the check ball out. Up to 88, it takes a ball right there. Every one of them takes a ball there, 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 and there. They also, from the factory, come with this larger ball that goes in this pocket right here. I suggest you take it out. And I think I'm going to change this brass one out for a steel one. Alright, we've got two different gaskets. See how there's no holes down here? That's non-auxiliary, which is what we have. This is the earlier style pump gasket that I was telling you about. You got C on it for case, and then a V on it for valve body. These are the auxiliary style. They got the holes down here. This is for the real early ones. They had another plate that went on over here for this accumulator. It would go on here, and then there'd be a plate, and then a plate would go on top. So we want the gasket with the C. I'm going to go down first. We want the one with the V on top. We want two valve body bolts, one right here. These are our lineup holes. Oh, come on now. If I grab the right hole. I'm sorry. Early, I'm thinking 4L60E. One's right here. And one's right here on the 700. Okay, so you got two short bolts here. One really long bolt here. These four short 10s go down here. And you can actually tighten these up after the fact, after you get the valve body on this unit, but we're going to go ahead and tighten them down now. take these lineup bolts back out. Gotta tighten down our park bracket. Our manual valve link, the hooked end is going to go in up here. We go ahead and take our pass-through connector out. I almost always break the little tabs off so I don't worry about it. There's an O-ring that goes on here, and even though you put an O-ring on it, go ahead and silicone it, it will leak. This little lineup tab needs to face out towards the outside of the tranny here, this way. Alright, you got your 3 check balls here, 88 models, or 87, I think starting in 87 it didn't take that check ball anymore. We're going to hook our manual link into here. The washer goes right here. Let's find out where our different wiring harnesses are different. This one is going to go right there. So we need to leave that one out. Alright, we got our mouse trap. The little link goes in just like that. This little tab is going to go in that hole right there. This will push that check ball off if you put it in there. If the cable breaks and it makes it shift late. And a little roll pin goes in that slot right there. Alright, now we can put our harness on. The locking tab going to go towards the rear. And that usually breaks off, but it's no big deal. Our wiring harness goes underneath there. We got to leave that off for a second. Alright, in the hydraulic lockup valve kit, they give you a check ball, at least the Transgo one does, and the other one it does not. So it's a 3/8 inch ball, I believe. I'll get the measurement here in a minute. Put you a check ball in there. Do not do that if you did not put the hydraulic lockup valve in. There's an O-ring on that. Snout, just put that on there. It does not matter if this solenoid works or not anymore since we've done this. So don't worry about anything there. We got our detent, a 13mm. Got our filter. Our gasket. Our pan. Our pan bolts. Alright, you can get this tool off the Snap-on truck. I think you can also get it from A-Tech Trans Tool. It takes out your lever seals. You screw it in there. This side of your lever seal faces in. Get you a pocket screwdriver. You're going to work the lip up around the flat spots on the linkage. If I can hold on to it. Alright, once you get it worked up around there, it's your installation tool. Our linkage with 15mm nut depends, well, it doesn't depend on that. Thinking 350s, never mind. Alright, we're nearing the end on our governor. Make sure it's all nice and free. On a two-wheel drive, I would put the O-ring that goes on there. Just goes on there right like that. And there's a clip that pops in from here to here, holds this cover in. 4x4s, usually you can't get that clip in. They normally don't have it. I just silicone it. That silicone is going to help keep it in there. Once that's in there, we're going to check our governor, see how much play is right there, and it's a bit much. Just take your hammer, this end, ding that cover in the center. Alright, that's pretty good. You want just a little bit of play. You don't want it too tight, but you don't want it loose. And we got our tail housing. Whether it's a 4x4 or two-wheel drive, you're going to use this same rubber. Here, 15mm on the tail housing, and we got a couple rubber boots, and we are done. This is not much point in me showing putting the bolts in. I can tighten that up off the camera. Let's see here. This is our kick down boot. And our filler tube boot. And here's the rear seal if you would be putting it in. This is the O-ring for the speedometer. Two-wheel drives would have that. And it looks like that's it for this one. Well, we will catch you on the next one. This one is an 85 model. I'm going to talk a little bit about the plates. The check ball goes here all the way up to 88. In 88, there would only be one hole here, and it only takes one check ball. On your line bias valve here, if it's round all the way around right here, it's got to have this hole. If it has a flat spot on it like that, on this valve right here, it cannot have this hole in this plate right here. So make sure all that is right. I'm not sure what year they did away with it. They did away with this sleeve back here on the throttle valve. So there are some differences. This valve lineup right here was a two-piece all the way till I believe it was 88, and then it went to a one-piece design and was much longer. It was about the length of this whole thing, but it was all one piece. I guess the only other thing we'll talk about when we get to the throttle valve, things are super prone about getting stuck, especially if you don't clean out the cooler lines really well. So they would have you put a spring on it to help keep it from getting stuck. The problem is, this is usually what they're going to send you. And there used to be a really good one that they had. It was a little stiffer than this, and it was cone shaped, and it was really good. I can't get them anymore. I can't seem to find them anywhere. And I've tried using these, and these tend to stick to valves. So I try to make sure that the R&R guy make sure it's nice and clean. That doesn't always work out. So try to make sure that this is super free. If it's not super free, odds are it's going to get stuck, and you're going to end up going back through the valve body. Now when it has the sleeve, you have to put the valve in the sleeve, and then the roll pin's going to come in, and it's going to go in right here. It's going to go in this hole right here, and this valve is not going to come back out. That's why you got to do it with the sleeve in there. If I remember right, that's the way it was. Anyway, we're going to stick it in there, and see what we got. Maybe we can get it in there. We're going to try. It's been a long time. As I recall, you couldn't get the valve out unless you pulled the whole sleeve, or pulled the roll pin. You didn't have to pull the whole sleeve. I think I went too far. I don't remember where this roll pin was going. I think it's going here. And that's why I couldn't get it. Yeah. Okay, so I had it all screwed up. The roll pin's going to go in down here, and you can't get the valve back out. But it still goes in down there. So let's make sure we're kind of lined up. Keep an eye out for it when it gets to where it needs to be. And there's a flared end of the roll pin and there's a narrow end. You want to put the narrow end in. Alright now. Get this to where I can see. Getting myself all screwed up here. I don't want to score this up, take it in and out too many times. I'm going to end up getting this stupid thing stuck. Go. Picked up a piece of dirt. It don't take much at all. When you start going in and out with these things, you're going to pick something up and it's going to get stuck and you're going to be screwed. There we go. Alright, now if you don't have and you want to achieve full throttle 3/4 upshift, here's a modification you can do here. This hole, some of these have one hole, some have two holes. You plug this hole off and you're going to have to make sure you can do it with the set screw. I've never done the mod myself. You're going to have to do it with the set screw. You have to tap it. You have to make sure that set screw doesn't come through and block this valve from stroking in here. But you're going to block those holes off. Then you're going to take this passage right here and you're going to grind the slot that connects these two passages. You can do it if you want to. I never have done it. This roll pin comes in from this side and it's going to go in that slot right there. Depending on what you got as to what pressure sensors you're going to have. Our pressure sensors are no longer going to matter on this unit because we're bypassing the lockup function. But I have run into situations where you want to keep the wiring harness hooked up and you want to keep it hooked up to your pressure sensors so the circuit's completed. I have run into situations where the choke system on the vehicle did not work properly if you cut the wiring, so keep that in mind. You don't have to have this socket. You can do this with a pair of pliers. Let's see if we got a part number on here. No part number, it just says an inch and a 16th, but it's a oil pressure sensor socket. Just snug's fine. Get radical with it. You can do this as long as you have, the early ones had a valve, a sleeve and valve in here, and then a valve that came in the back side where this plug sits. You're going to swap all that out. You could leave the inner valve in, it was the same, but you're going to swap the sleeve and the spring and the valve that's in here out. If it has this style where it's got the two plugs, you can still put it in 87, somewhere in there. They quit boring the end here, but it still had this plug. You can output this kit in. And then they totally did away with it, and it would be cast solid over. There would be no option to put anything in there. So we're going to put our hydraulic lockup valve in. This one's from Transgo, and I forgot they have you put another spring in it. There's two different kits. You can get the one from Transgo, or they make another one, but I don't remember which company it is. I don't never get that one anymore. For some reason, they're always sending me the Transgo one. So they still both work the same, so it doesn't matter. Let's see what he wants us to do. It's been a while since I put one in. Standard gas, we're going to put the blue spring. So let's find our blue spring. That's going to go in here, and that's going to go inside of here, and our roll pin's going to fit in this groove. It doesn't, so we can turn this any way we want to. The inner valve is going to face with this side out, this side in. And let's see, we have four-wheel drive, so we want the brown spring. There's white and green and orange, and the red goes up there, so this must be the brown, even though I don't see a color on it. We're going to see, I did run into one of these situations where it called for this small spring like this, and it got stuck. So if it's not fitting properly, I'm not going to put this one in. I'm not going to deal with that again. So we're wanting this valve line up right here. To get your roll pins out, you can just poke your scribe in there. It's going to push your pin up. See if we can get this sleeve out of here without it being too much of a problem. It seems like it might be okay. I'm going to keep this spring just in case. Like I said, the last one I did, the spring did not work out, and I ended up having to swap it back out. But it didn't feel as good as this one felt. Alright, so we got our, make sure our throttle valve is nice and free. We got 3/4 inch check balls. One's going to go there, one's going to go there, one's going to go there. Put some grease to hold that in place. Alright, we're going to save all that other stuff. Our manual valve. It's going to go in just like so. Save all that stuff to the side. Thinner, or the thicker, and the stiffer the springs are that are down in here on your weights, right down inside there, it will make it shift earlier. So the lighter the spring and the thinner the weight, the later it'll shift. And to get these springs in there, I don't really want to pop one out, as they can be a little fun getting in there. But to pop them out, it's easy. You just take something and pop it out. But to get it back in, there's a little nipple down in there. Get the spring started on it and kind of try to compress it and roll it in at the same time. And then there's a little spot in there that the spring will pop onto on this side. And work it several times and make sure that you're not binding up. And then also you want to make sure that the valve is moving, like that is moving right there. Otherwise you are not going to shift. So make sure that this is all nice and tight. This is not worn out up in here. These weights are working properly. These move independently, and that your valve is free. Make sure this gear is nice and tight. You don't want it twisting around inside there, and you don't want an apple core right here. I guess that's it for the valve body. They do give you a check ball to put in the end of the lockup snout. We'll do that when we get in the rebuild. That was going to be done anyway, even if we had the other kit. So when we get to the rebuild, we'll be back.